Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the University of Scranton. Thank you for joining us on this special day in our year-long celebration of the 125th anniversary of the founding of the university. Over the course of the last year, we have gathered for liturgies, concerts, exhibits, receptions, roundtable talks, and even birthday cake. I missed that one. Tonight, we are delighted to have with us a distinguished scholar and leader of a worldwide organization whose mission is to help those most marginalized and most in need. We are honored to have our guest speaker, Dr. Carolyn Woo, with us tonight. As the university has reflected on its own mission this past year, we found inspiration in the vision of our founder, Bishop William O'Hara, who challenged a diocese made up of largely poor immigrant minors to envision a different future for their children, one that could light the valley and indeed the world with fires of learning. Today, we strongly embrace the necessity, born of our Catholic and Jesuit mission, to ensure that our students experience the world in all its gritty reality and that they in turn are inspired to make a difference in that world. It's my pleasure now to introduce the 25th president of the University of Scranton, Reverend Kevin P. Quinn, Society of Jesus, who will introduce our speaker. Brother Quinn.
Thank you, Pat. Good evening. And thank you, each and every one of you, for coming tonight on this special night in the life of our university. Tonight, we will hear from a woman who is a model of all that we seek to be here at the University of Scranton. She is a woman who speaks for those who cannot, and a woman who is tirelessly trying to make the world a better and more merciful and just place. As we planned the events around our 125th anniversary, it was important to me that we have a lecture focused on the real-life issues that face our students, faculty, staff, and community partners today, and fosters our mission as a Catholic and Jesuit university. You will see in a few moments why Dr. Carolyn Woo fits the bill. Tonight, Dr. Woo will describe how Catholic Relief Services, or as we refer to it as CRS, responds to the gospel's call to serve the poorest and most vulnerable on behalf of the Catholics in the United States. This call is at the heart of our mission as a Catholic and Jesuit university in the 21st century. Dr. Woo joined CRS in 2012 as president and CEO after a distinguished academic and service career, which included membership on the CRS Board of Directors from 2004 to 2010. From 1997 to 2011, Dr. Woo was Dean of the University of Notre Dame Mendoza School of Business in Notre Dame, Indiana. During her tenure as Dean, the Mendoza College was recognized frequently as the nation's leading business school in ethics, education, and research. And it received a top ranking in 2010 and 2011 for its undergraduate business program from the Bloomberg Businessweek magazine. Dr. Woo's teaching, research, and administration have been recognized by Best Paper Awards by the Academy of Management, selection as one of the 40 Young Leaders of American Academy by Change magazine, and several distinguished alumni and honorary alumni distinctions. She was the first female dean to chair the accreditation body for business schools, the Association to Advance Collegiate Schools of Business, and she directed its initiative for Peace Through Commerce. Currently, Dr. Woo serves on the Board of Directors for Catholic Charities USA, the Board of Governors for the University of Notre Dame, Australia, the Archdiocese of Baltimore Independent Child Abuse Review Board, the Executive Council on the Development of the Center for Strategic and International Studies, Migration and Refugee Services, U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops, and the International Policy Committee, U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops. Just to name a few, it's an extraordinary list. She also helped launch Principles for Responsible Management Education for the United Nations Global Compact Program. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my distinct privilege and pleasure to welcome to our speaker this evening, the President and CEO of Catholic Relief Services, Dr. Carolyn Woo.
Father Kevin, thanks very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. After all of that, I just want to say I'm Carolyn. And it's just a tremendous privilege to be here. I feel like I'm with family. First of all, thank you very much to Father Kevin. I understand that you started the lecture series for the 125th anniversary, and I'm the closing bracket. And that is a daunting thing to follow. But anyway, so we'll try to do our best. Thank you to Dr. Harrington. Thank you to Sister Ann for being here. Thank you for all my friends, Father Bernie, in whose hall we are standing. I actually know Father Bernie from my neighbors across the street who love him dearly. I have my husband's high school classmate, Bill Bukovich, who's also here. Friends, Dr. Peg Hogan and her husband. So I feel like I'm with friends. But more important is because Scranton and Marywood have also supported CRS work. We have our global ambassadors here, and just want them to please stand. Our global ambassadors, CRS global ambassadors. And many of you don't know of our work in the U.S. We do not provide services. That is not in our Constitution. That's the work of Catholic Charities. But we do have a U.S. operations whose role is catechesis, evangelization, helping people in the United States understand what is Catholic social teaching and play a role in it. We have a fairly large university program, which is actually becoming larger. And our university program actually has three dimensions. One is student development, student leadership development, and therefore you have our CRS ambassadors. They receive training from CRS, and they also play a role on campus in terms of bringing social justice onto campus and helping educate that. We also have a piece of it which is faculty and curricular facing. So just this spring, the module, every spring we put together a module for university faculty to use. This spring, the module that we had was focused on forced labor. So we focus on the theme. We provide the background readings and the intellectual understanding of that particular topic. We provide cases related to the topic, and we provide our CRS colleagues who are the technical experts in that particular area to come into the classroom through the web, of course. And then we also have one dimension of the university programs for administrators to adopt, for example, fair trade products. So that's just a little commercial to give you a sense of beyond the international work that we do, that we accept the responsibility, given our privilege of seeing all the things that go on around the world. How do we bring this work back to the United States so that the Catholics in this country can play a role in it too. So I just want to say thank you for all the work that you've done to support us, for all the excellent work that you do here, the tremendous Jesuit tradition from whom we've all learned and on whose shoulders we stand. You were out in the world long before we started this work. So I just want to say thank you, and of course congratulations to the University of Scranton for 126 years old now. That's really a tremendous achievement. So tonight I'm going to speak a little bit about our work, and I'm also going to show some videos because I think it's more interesting sometimes to see pictures rather than just to listen to people talk. And I have been trained 3 times and ran through the drill of how I manage all of this technology up here. I just want to say this picture you see is actually at the back of our dining room at CRS. And look at such happy smiles and the healthy babies. And actually there's a prayer that we put into the picture too, and it defines what we do. The prayer is, Lord, please give food to those who are hungry, and for those who have food, please give a hunger for justice. That's pretty much sums up our work. This is on the back wall. On either side of the walls, there are also pictures. On one side, there are beautiful pictures of seeds and grains and water and trees and harvest and all of those good things. And we say, and the inscription is, "We shall see the bounty of the Lord." And then in the other wall, people eating, harvesting, and so on. And the inscription is, "In the land of the living." And clearly we are in the middle. So all we are doing is that we are just a bridge from God's bounty to the land of the living to make sure that those who don't have access to it can have access to it. That just gives you a little bit. A little bit on our history. We're about 71 years old. We were founded during World War II to bring refugees out of war-torn Europe and then Asia, and then we continue. We are the official agency of the U.S. Catholic Bishops' Conference to do work internationally. And so we actually represent the U.S. Catholics. In a lot of the places that we go to, they don't even know how to pronounce our names. But they would say, those are the U.S. Catholics. So they know us as the U.S. Catholics out in the world. We're actually part of the global family. Every country, almost, there are about 180 countries in the world, but 164 countries has an agency like us. It's usually called Caritas. It usually does social work for both domestic and international populations. Some of the poorer countries tend to focus only on domestic work. Countries such as Ireland, Australia, and so on and so forth, they tend to focus more internationally. The U.S. is unusual in that we have Catholic Charities and CRS, but we go together as one member into this federation. We each have half a vote. And so there are 164 sister agencies in the world, and that's wonderful. Everywhere we work, every country we work, we go in with the invitation of the local bishops, and we work with the local church partners. So there's Caritas Sudan, there's Caritas Yemen, there's Caritas Pakistan. So there is Caritas everywhere that you would hardly imagine. And very often, too, we work with the Jesuit refugee corps also. But we're in a global family. When you talk about the global church, we really know what it means. We're in the middle of that global church. We also work with a lot of local partners, over 1,000. So we have 1,100 partner organizations. So you have to think about the complexity of that. And half of our partners are Catholic. The other half maybe secular and a lot of times other faith. Our mission is really very simple. We follow Christ's gospel message, which is to serve neighbors in need. And CRS has chosen to focus on the poorest, the most isolated, the very marginalized, and the most vulnerable. So we are in very poor countries. A lot of the people we work for, I call that we work for them, they make that less than $1 a day. We are in deeply, deeply devastated places, right now, Central Africa or Sudan. We're serving Syrian refugees and so on. So people who are in desperate need. We serve on the basis of need, not on the basis of creed. So as you can tell, we are in a lot of countries where there are very few Catholics. And finally, we also have U.S. operations. The goal of that is really catechesis, evangelization, engagement. A little bit about our footprint around the world. The color regions of where we are, it doesn't mean that we have an office in every country just because it's not always efficient. We are now in about 101 countries. We were 100 countries 3 years ago. We were 90 countries a year and a half ago. So a lot of countries that we work in, we tend to stay for a very long time. But there are about 20 countries, 30 countries where it's not very stable. There are different types of developing situations. The new round of countries we're in is actually in Eastern Europe. We have left Eastern Europe for a while, but now there's also requests for our presence there by the church, so that's why we're back. We divide our operating footprint into 8 regions. Sometimes it's 7, sometimes it's 6. So it depends. That's fairly fluid, but we're in about 100 countries or so. We serve about 100 million beneficiaries, and we really count. Beneficiaries are direct and indirect. So we may serve a man, that man has a family. So the family becomes the indirect beneficiaries. Our budgets vary a lot, between less than $700 million to over $900 million. And the reason is that we are very sensitive to emergencies. Big emergencies will take our revenues up a lot. So the tsunami and Haiti, for example, will bring in several $100 million of resources. So another level of complexity, other than 100 countries, 100 million people, 1,100 partners, is also a budget that could have major swings, and knowing how to deal with that. Most of our work is divided into either emergency, 1/3 of it, or 2/3 is development. Most people think about CRS as just an emergency operation. We are, but 2/3 of our work is really long-term development, enhancement, improvement, transformation. We don't want to be serving people who are poor. We want them to be not poor. So our job is not just to keep coming back because they're poor. Our job is to take them out of that most marginalized level. So we do a lot of work, which is actually in the area of poverty reduction, building capacity of local community, building the resilience of people. The reason that we need to build resilience is whenever now we have a chance to work with people in emergency, we actually try to designate some of the money for development. The reason is that we anticipate a lot more natural catastrophes. And there is not enough money in the world if you keep on layering more and more and more people and more frequently because of these disasters. So there is a determination that when we can go into work in an emergency, we got to do the work so that it has a long-term solution. So that when the next round of disasters hit, the people you've helped, they're now much better off. They didn't suffer the type of losses that they would have otherwise, so that you could focus on the new people. And so it's a whole area of development and building capacity for the long run. And because we're 70 years old, we've worked in a lot of different countries through a lot of different situations. We've also developed a very broad portfolio of work. So we're in agriculture, shelter, we have been in health, HIV and AIDS, nutrition. We've added children who are disabled. We do a lot of peace and justice work, education, micro enterprises. We used to own micro lending banks. Now we have given our banks to our local church partners. We're doing a lot of micro savings instead of micro lending because you can see the local community now knows what to do with micro lending. About 92 to 93 cents of every dollar goes into the field. So there's a commitment that our own support cost does not exceed 10%. And because we recognize that the money is really not for us, the money is really for our beneficiaries. So that gives you a sense. We are almost in every country in Africa. The toughest countries, of course, are like South Sudan right now, Central Africa, West Africa, and so we're in those places. So that gives you a sense of your CRS at work. It is a complicated, large agency. Before I go into Haiyan, because today is actually the 6-month anniversary of Haiyan, I want to show you a little video because I think the video allows you to see our work rather than just listen to me. By the way, we also have a broad portfolio because we use an approach which is called integral human development. And the whole idea is if there is hunger, the solution is not just to provide food. The solution generally requires multidimensional responses. So first of all, why are people hungry? Are they growing the right things? Are they using the right methods? Is the land productive? Do they have access to capital to buy seeds and what they need? Are they literate? Is there a market for their produce? Do their children have proper nutrition? Could they go to school because they're the second generation? Do women have title to land, for example, because they're part of the workforce? So we never look at a problem as just, I have a sickness, well, give a injection. You know, it's sort of, so we have to really get at the root causes of those problems, and poverty is seldom a single dimension problem, right? So that's why we're also very broad in all of these things. We are now, as part of our new strategy, is an exciting strategy, but for example, peace building and justice is going to be integrated across all of the sectors. Okay? Because we recognize that there's this whole issue of inequality, and that as we solve whatever problem it is, that we also have to attend to the issue of inequality. So what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to bring up a video, all right, and this will test everything that I was taught how to do. Okay, let's just see how well we do it. Oh, don't do that, do here. Okay, before I show the work is in 3 countries. It shows our emergency relief work in Haiti, shows our education work in Burkina Faso, and it shows our agriculture work in Madagascar.
Having wisdom, but think without love. Had I faith to scatter the hills, I am nothing at all. Set your eyes on the higher hills, on the hills that rise from your Maker in heaven. These things are all that remain, faith, hope, and love, and the greatest is love.
And if I should renounce all my riches, feed the hungry, give over my life, without love my profit is lost, my caring finds no reward. Set your sights on the higher hills, on the hills that rise from your Maker in heaven. These three things are all that remain, faith, hope, and love, and the greatest is
Okay. So that gives you a bit of a sense. I want to go in a little bit more about our work. See? All right, Haiyan. All right, so this is the 6-month anniversary of Haiyan. You know, the typhoon that came through was one of the most powerful, almost 200 miles wind. Can you imagine, miles per hour? A lot of lives have impacted. Actually, in terms of livelihood, they lost about 33 million coconut trees in this region. So it's devastating. There was actually a lot of notice. There was about 5 days of notice, but people were so used to typhoon in this area, it was just hard to really sort of comprehend how bad it would be. This set of pictures were actually taken in February when I was there. What you see is still a lot of devastation. You see the banner, which is CRS and Caritas in action. What you see here is that there are actually several of these boats which are on land. They were just put on land. And now they're almost condos for people. That's where they live. And finally, here is in the church, the type of psychosocial support for the young people who've gone through this. We are now done with our emergency relief phase. To give you some idea, we work with 40,000 families, actually, and in emergency is about emergency shelter, it's about water, and also non-food items, because there were UN agencies distributing food. So our emergency shelters are wonderful. They're made of coconut lumber, and it's like an A-frame structure using tarps. We're now moving into development. Our goal is eventually to help 100,000 families, so about 500,000 people. In the development phase that we're in is, again, 3 focus. One is what we call transition shelter. We cannot build permanent shelters because we don't have the title to the land. So emergency shelters are actually quite wonderful. They have different footprints depending on the size of the family. They're constructed of local lumber. They're raised from the floor just so that they could withstand future floods. They actually sometimes come with a little garden around it and a moat. And so we'll be working with people on transition shelters. We are doing a lot of work on livelihood, which is a big, big problem. This is an area that depended on coconut trees. And actually, while they depended on coconut trees, that was not the best solution. People were pretty poor, even when their coconut trees were working for them. These trees take about 5 to 8 years to mature. And so how will people live in the meantime? And so here is introducing cash crops. And actually to use that for building back better, which is that even when the trees come back, they would be interspersed with the cash crops so that they could actually increase their income. So we're doing a lot of that, and we're also dealing with water. So oftentimes people say, you know, there's so much to do, how do you decide? And so in this case, we decided on shelter, which is a CRS strength. CRS is well known for our shelters. I was told that we've built more shelters now than all the houses in Baltimore, but I've not counted the houses in Baltimore. And it's a much more expensive work. It's harder to do. And it actually is not about engineering talent. It's a lot about, you know, the whole working with the local community. Livelihood, again, it takes a long time, takes a lot of work. And so that's what we're doing. And water, of course, is important for agriculture. We can't really deal with the livelihood issue of growing something else. We don't know how to work through the whole irrigation, water supply, and of course, water for living. So that gives us some sense of our work. I just want to say a lot of times it's easy to say, we just always hear about problems. Do we ever make any progress? And actually, there's been significant progress, not by CRS alone, but by the human community, by the aid community, by multilateral organizations, the UN, and all of these international NGOs, local NGOs, and even government. So here is just a highlight of some good news for a change. What you see in this, my upper left, which is about the accessibility of clean water, that over these last 20 years, we have now made water available to 2 billion people. The work is not done yet, but that's not a small achievement. Underneath it, of course, is always working towards the eradication of disease. In this case, is guinea worm. And the diseases that we're working on, for example, is malaria. We're working on it at this point. But you know, disease is a very fluid issue. It just takes a couple of countries where they don't abide by the prevention protocol. There are special situations. So, for example, you know, TB is coming back. And so we deal with the eradication of different diseases, but clearly death due to malaria has been reduced a lot. In that case, is guinea worm. Children under 5, the upper middle slide, the mortality rate for children under 5 used to be 12 million. And in these last 25 years or so, instead of 12 million, it's now at 7 million. So there's a reduction of 5 million. 7 million is still a big number, but you know, that's you know, it's a huge reduction. So the key really is we know that certain things that we are doing, we know how to make certain things work, but these things are fluid. You know, situations change, but these are dramatic type of, I think, progress. Down here is about access to girls to go to school in sub-Saharan Africa. Doesn't mean that 97% of girls all go to school, but it does mean that they have access to school. And so you saw in that video of Burkina Faso, school doesn't even have books, right? They didn't have pencil or papers. She had a little slate. But literacy is literacy, however you get it. And the ability to count, to read, for example. And of course, girls going to school, there are a lot of other issues associated with it. Sometimes they're needed for work. Sometimes, you know, when a girl has a menstruation, for example, she can't go to school. So there are different things, but now the whole accessibility, and also because of mobile devices, literacy is much more within reach than before. And the big red thing is really relates to a goal called 0% generation, which is about HIV/AIDS transmission from mother to baby, that we want 0%, just so that we don't have a next generation. You know, we're trying to work with this generation as it is. We have a lot of orphans, vulnerable children. I was in Cambodia. I visited with some AIDS orphans. They're turning 20 years old. And I think that we don't know how to deal with that population at all. They're no longer children, but there's severe depression. We're beginning to see some reaction to the drugs that they were given. They have no families. They're out in the world by themselves. Can you imagine? I mean, no grandparents, no parents. You know, and they're 20 years old, so they're not children. They're not quite adults. It's a difficult issue. But we are now achieving 0%, almost 0% prevention, in the sense that if a mother has access to ART drugs, then pretty much 98% of the babies will be saved. So these are some of the progress, because it's important for people to know that when we put our minds on working on things, we could actually get it done. Some of the progress, and I'm not going to dwell on this, it's not just physical and health and agriculture. We also need progress in the way of governance, particularly democracy, transparency, and addressing the issue of corruption. So now there's a newly elected parliament, not so new anymore, several years in Somalia. You could take a commercial flight to Mogadishu. I don't know whether you want to, but you can. And the church has asked us to return to Somalia. I guess we were there in several decades. The bishop who is in charge of it does not live in Somalia. He is in actually Eritrea. But he thinks that this work now and the people who are there could use the support of Caritas Somalia, which really cannot start itself. And so we are going back to Somalia. Ghana, of course, is always a poster child for the things which have been done right in terms of how it manages its oil revenues. There are other, Botswana is making a lot of investments in education, in agriculture, in manufacturing. And again, a country has to invest in its sectors in order to have jobs. It cannot just go on oil alone because there's not enough jobs there. So Botswana is kind of another poster child for doing things right. And I would say both of these countries, by and large, are retaining the improvements which have been made. Sometimes improvements are made and then they go backwards. We've seen that in Malawi. We're seeing that in Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe under Robert Mugabe used to be, again, a poster child of good things, and then he did not let go of power. He is still in position. There's no democratic elections. Or let's just put it there, our elections is one of those things where 99% of the vote is for one candidate. Actually, was at a conference in Malawi. He spoke, and you could tell clearly it was not so much him, but the whole power structure behind him. He's 94 years old. He could hardly stand at the podium. But these are the things that could happen. You know, there are power vacuums. So there are some countries where there have been, like Malawi, Ghana, and Nigeria, where the transfer of power was not violent, but you also, in the news, take a look at Nigeria. While the overall government is somewhat stable, these type of rebel groups, you know, they're always there to destabilize. But overall, that there's some progress towards governance, towards transparency, particularly in the distribution of oil revenues, dealing with corruption issue, investing in the local infrastructures, that sort of thing, making progress. So before I go a whole lot further, just want to give a state of the current picture. Poverty is still prevalent. We have about 21% of the population living under $1.25 a day, about 800 to 900 million people who go to bed hungry. Many of those are actually farmers. They're very small farmers, but they're farmers. And there's a lot of issue associated with that too, and that is overall, the demand for food would outpace the supply of food. So working in agriculture is a very big area for CRS, and part of the reason is not only to help those who are very poor, because the very poor for some reason tend to be farmers. As I said, they tend to be the ones who starve, but also because the land under production has to be fertile, has to be productive. And so even the farmers are not getting much from the land that they're farming. That is not a good sign, which means that that land is not being used in the most productive way to deal with this food issue. And of course, where there is poverty, there is violence. I remember one year I went to one of the countries, don't want to name it, 40% of the people were unemployed, 60% of the youth were unemployed, and machine guns would be made available to the youth on an afternoon basis. So people would actually truck in machine guns, give it to the youth, and then they go make trouble, and that's how you have these sectarian sort of conflicts. The youth then, you know, go and create whatever havoc there is, come back, turn in their machine guns, they go someplace the next day, but very available. And here is the whole issue of youth. We're doing a lot of work actually in South America with youth in gangs. And the gang issue is terrible too. We start from Central America, it comes to North America, they learn certain tactics, it becomes bigger, more sophisticated. If they understand how the dynamics work, they go back to the South and they become more sophisticated, meaning more violent, more ruthless, and it's just that cycle until people die. And so this is the work to develop youth, to engage them in life skills development so that they actually could see a future, and also working with over 200 businesses, for example, in El Salvador to employ these people. So that's the work in terms of the youth boat. And clearly, we have high mortality rate because a lot of the deliveries by mothers are not safe. 50% of women deliver babies in their own homes without any assistance at all. Clean water, still 1 billion more people to go. And of course, the whole issue of trafficking. There's actually no good numbers on trafficking because you can imagine trafficking happens within borders and across borders. Trafficking happens to women and it happens to men. There's a lot of forced labor in men. And I think that John Kerry recently, signed something pertaining to the welfare of trafficked slave labor associated with the fishing industry. And you don't even hear about that because a lot of these men, they are kidnapped, they're put into these boats, they work as slave laborers, and they never come back to land because these fishing boats, they do not dock. They sell their merchandise to another boat. And so these people who are captured in boats, unless they choose to jump into the ocean, they're captured there. And it's a big deal in some countries, fishing industries. So these are some of the issues still exist in our world. I want to give you a little bit about integral human development, what it looks like, and using Haiti as an example. The 5th anniversary of Haiti will come up next January. What does it mean when we talk about integral human development? Here is the devastation. This is a cathedral after the earthquake. So below it is shelter. So you see these wonderful homes that are made of plywood. They have a concrete base. They have a metal roof. They can, I think, withstand wind up to 40 or 45 miles per hour, something like this. It looks simple. It's actually a very difficult project. So in Haiti, one of the problems they dealt with was ripples. Ripples were everywhere. How do you rebuild when there are ripples? So the way that actually this problem was solved was very interesting. It's very clever. We started importing these drums. They're like on a stand. Inside the drum are blades. And the blades are moved by a crank. So there's a drum, there are blades inside, and you crank the drum for the blades to work. And we put big pieces of concrete into it and grind it up. So the way we dealt with ripples was we ground it up. Those drums cost about $8,000 to $9,000 a drum. So what we did was that we gave these drums, didn't just give it, we trained entrepreneurs. And so we trained them, they run it as a business. We give them the drum, but they hire 6 people. Every team is 7 people because after you crank it, you have to sift it and you have to bag it, whatever it is. And there are 3 shifts working. So every segment of a neighborhood, we have 21 people who are employed and grounding up concrete. So we don't have to deal with the fact of there are no roads to remove the rubble. There are no heavy equipment for the ripples. There's no place to put the rubble. But we ground it up, and also CRS then buys the rubble back because that's what we use as the basis of the house. All right? So you see the type of solutions that you go for. They have to have a local flavor and sort of adaptive to the particular problems that we have. That's just one problem. Another problem is that there's no land title to these houses. You know, people don't know what they own. The third problem associated with that is that the camps are not very pleasant places, but at least when you're in the camp, you get your food ration, and the children are taught by someone. So you don't have to get a job. You don't have to worry about where food comes from. Once you move back into the neighborhood, you have to deal with those issues. Livelihood, children's education, and also sanitation and water supply. So the whole issue of, you just see these shelters, you know, they look simple to put together, but the sociological context around it and the political context around it can be pretty complicated. The picture next to it about those children, we have this theory about, you know, and I talked about earlier on, our approach is building back better. So here is really working with Catholic schools. The Episcopal Conference of Haiti actually had a strategic plan. And we took advantage of that. The first thing we did was that we did a huge research project. We visited every one of the 2,500 Catholic schools. We gave a research grant to one of the universities. They send their students in teams. Each team will visit a school. There are 75 questions that they would fill out, and they would take the pictures. And then they would upload it to the map of Haiti. We got that done within 2.5 years. And so the data on every school are now available online. And so we know 1st to 3rd grade or 1st to 4th grade, are there teachers? Is there a roof? Are there books? How many students are actually enrolled here, and so on? All of that. There was no data on that. Now there is data of all of those things, and actually because the data is so easily accessible, you could search the data by a particular region. You could ask how many schools don't have roofs. You could ask how many schools go up to 6th grade and whatever it is. So now there is a strategic plan behind this to do teacher training, to do parent training, and some of these schools are owned by different religious orders. They're doing the fundraising to rebuild some of these schools. So that is the whole idea of building back better in a transformative way where we took on the whole Catholic school system. The picture to my right is the hospital. It's completely devastated. This is St. Francois de Sales. It will now build back to this beautiful hospital. We would probably have a blessing. It will be done January of 2015, which actually is sort of like unbelievable to us. It's not easy to do work in Haiti. This hospital now will actually be transformed into a teaching hospital. We will work with Notre Dame of Haiti to train doctors and nurses. Our partner in the United States is the Catholic Health Association. They have provided both funding as well as capacity transfer. They would do a lot of training also. So you could see this was a very poor hospital at one time. Now it's a 2-story teaching hospital. And one of the things it will also have is a wing for wealthy people, because it's not a teaching hospital, and they would use that revenue to subsidize the poor people, right? Up above it is really what we call from mountain to market, and it's a whole area of how do we look at mango and coffee production in this area to make sure that, you know, the land is healthy, the produce are the right produce, they have the quality, the quantity, the consistency that is needed to be sold into the market, that there is an infrastructure to take them to market. And finally, that other one is just really a lot of training of and development of local staff, local communities. Okay? I don't want you to read that chart. I just want to let you know that innovation is very, very critical to us. We're always innovating. Here is show 4 areas that we're innovating in health systems, disaster risk reduction, and the whole agricultural value chains, and also what we call ICT 4D, which is information communication technology for development, which is the use of mobile devices. I'm going to show you a video on the mobile devices and a video on our global health. All right? Global health here will relate to our work on HIV/AIDS, which were started in 2003. We have never done work on this scale before. You know, the whole treatment of HIV/AIDS, there was not a lot of money for it until President Bush made available PEPFAR, the President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief. CRS applied for one of those grants. We created a consortium, and to our surprise, we were one of the largest recipients of those grants. We were responsible to make medication available in 10 countries on a massive scale. So I just want to show you, because you will see sort of like the work on behalf of the U.S. Catholics. A lot of times you see pictures where people are passing out bags of something from a truck. It is a lot more sophisticated than that. So I'm going to show you that and show you that video. All right.
They said it couldn't be done. Providing AIDS relief, that is. More than 34 million people worldwide are living with HIV, and almost 70% of them are in sub-Saharan Africa. But in the last decade, powerful new medications have made it possible for people infected with HIV to live long, healthy lives. These medicines are part of what's called antiretroviral therapy, or ART. At first, medicine was very expensive and was only available in wealthy countries. In poorer countries, only 7 out of every 100 people who needed medicine could get it. The United States set out to change that with the President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief, otherwise known as PEPFAR. PEPFAR made money available to provide medicine and other HIV care to poor people in developing countries. Catholic Relief Services and our partners created a program called AIDS Relief. In 2003, AIDS Relief received one of the largest PEPFAR grants to provide HIV care in 10 countries. Our goal was to provide treatment to as many people as possible as quickly as possible. They said it couldn't be done. They said there weren't enough doctors and nurses who knew how to treat HIV. So programs like AIDS Relief provided training to help medical providers become experts. They said it would be too difficult to deliver the medicines to people in villages in remote areas. So we helped build strong supply chains. They said rural villages are too far from hospitals and sick people couldn't get there. So we helped hospitals decentralize and create satellite clinics. They said many hospitals couldn't manage a complex health program. So we help provide strong organizations with good management, computerized records, and sound financial tracking. They said it would be too expensive to provide drugs to so many people. So we worked hard to keep costs low. They said people wouldn't understand how to take medicine properly. Our patients proved them wrong. Since the program began, AIDS Relief has provided more than 700,000 people with HIV care and treatment. That's enough people to fill Wrigley Field almost 17 times. AIDS Relief and PEPFAR proved that HIV treatment is possible anywhere in the world. And now we're turning it over to strong local organizations that will continue this life-saving work. They said it couldn't be done. What will we do next? For more information about CRS.org.
The next video I'm going to show you, and it's about the same length, is the use of mobile devices. And all of you have a cell phone. Cell phone is completely changing the way that development work is being done, and incredible impact, incredible accountability. CRS is actually known as a leader in this area, that we are a pioneer further along. So I just want to show you sort of in your name what we are doing with respect to mobile technology.
Catholic Relief Services first turned to advanced technologies to improve our work because we wanted to be more accountable and transparent to our donors and to those we helped. Over time, we realized that information and communication technologies not only helped us operate more effectively, but they were empowering the people we serve to become more independent, self-sufficient, and successful. We've since used technological solutions in a wide range of projects, from teaching women to read in Niger to boosting farmers' production in Colombia. At the heart of our work is accessibility, the accessibility that communities have to mobile technology. 96% of all people worldwide have access to a mobile device. 89% are in the developing world, with 63% in Africa. Mobile phones have become more affordable and commonplace, even in remote rural areas. Put into the hands of the poorest and most vulnerable, they've become crucial to improving lives. Using a simple cellular telephone, farmers can now access the latest market information, to help them get a fair price for their crops. Cash for Work recipients can receive funds through mobile banking. And pregnant women can be monitored by phone, as in this CRS project in Uttar Pradesh, India. Here, community health workers communicate vital messages to expectant mothers in an area that has one of the highest mortality rates of infants and women in childbirth.
It's so useful. There are some things that I didn't know about, and it helps me give the right advice. Thanks to the checklist, for the first time ever, I've been told what to eat and when to rest.
Since 2007, our ICT4D programs have expanded and now cover all sectors and regions where we work. One of the primary factors driving us forward is the rapid rate of innovation. Every day, new applications of technology emerge, many from developing communities themselves, applications that improve their life and livelihoods. While information and communications technologies are revolutionizing the way people live, there is still much more to learn and share on how to use the technology in development work. CRS and its partners are committed to investing the necessary time and resources to build a future where technology is truly at the service of the poor. ICT4D, empowering those we serve.
So I'm going to end with just a couple comments. Oops. So I just want to end, first of all, now we're coming to the end of the 2015 goals. There's a whole set of goals that are being developed. One of those is coming from the World Bank by Dr. Jim Kim, who's actually not a banker, but former president of Dartmouth University, a physician, and also a Ph.D. in anthropology. And he's driving an agenda which is to bring the two goals, to bring the percentage of people who are living under $1.25 from 20% to 3% by 2030, so in 15 years. You know, it's nothing to write home about. $1.25 is not a lot of money, even when you live above it. But it's the whole idea of focus on the eradication of extreme poverty. And his second goal is to look at the bottom 40% of income so that we don't create this whole huge income inequality issue. Of course, is in our faith. You know that we are called to not just turn our backs on it. I think that James' letter said, if you see someone who has no food, no clothes, you can't just say, well, I'm so sorry, I wish you well, you know, see you another time. You know, and in fact, he said, faith without works is dead. So I just want to end by saying that for us at CRS, it's been a tremendous privilege. It is the privilege of doing work that you know really matters. It's the privilege of knowing that you're participating in God's miracles. That's all we're doing. You know, the bounty of the Lord in the land of the living, we're just right in the middle. We are not the source of that bounty. Whatever work we do is multiplied so many times. And in the process of doing this work, we are connected with so many wonderful people, our partners, our beneficiaries, the Church of the United States, the Jesuit Refugee Corps that we run into. And so it's just a tremendous privilege. And at CRS, our tagline is faith, action, results. And we say this work is a privilege, and we have to work hard to earn it. Thank you very much. A few. I'll take questions to the extent you have time.
Dr. Woo has agreed to take some questions, and I'd like to start off with one, if that's okay. Thank you so much for your presentation. It was awesome. I have a big interest in HIV and AIDS work, and I appreciate the numbers that you shared. It's really phenomenal. My question is, how does Catholic Relief Services provide opportunities for people to volunteer?
Yeah, actually volunteering is a very tough question. We use a lot of volunteers, but they are local volunteers. So it's the whole idea of always to remember that we are guests in somebody's land. We really are very respectful to our local partners and the local community. So we try to build the local community as volunteers rather than bringing in Americans as volunteers for different reasons. So along the way, we've tried different programs. So American volunteers is not very successful, and also we're in countries which are very, they're not the easiest countries. And also, our implementation is not that we're actually out there digging a well or planting trees or whatever it is. We're 5,000 colleagues divided by 100 countries, 50 per country, which means that we're actually not the ones doing the work. We're the ones who are like designing, training, monitoring, recruiting, and all of those things. So our volunteers, so we don't have, we're not out there digging a well so that our volunteers could be digging a well with us. So that is the part of it too, of how do we work in foreign volunteers. But noting the extensive interest there is, we are actually revamping to more creatively imagine where there may be specific projects and specific countries where we could have our students. We're revamping our whole university program so that out of that, we would actually be able to identify universities where people have been very committed to the CRS, we're going to call it the Global University Program. And so of the schools, it's sort of like student chapters, right? Phi Beta Kappa, whatever schools that are very active, these, they become a gold chapter, silver chapter, whatever it is, and how to then offer opportunities for those students to apply for internship opportunities. And also to think broadly, we actually also have need for interns in the US also. So we're rethinking our volunteer program, but understand that our use of volunteers is a little bit complicated. Okay?
Thank you, Doctor, for a wonderful presentation. I had an opportunity to travel with CRS to Rwanda and Burundi, and I was so struck during your presentation. You gave an overview of so many programs, but also of the empowerment and working with partners and people. I have to say that I was so profoundly moved by the reconciliation work that CRS is doing, with people who experienced genocide in Rwanda, and the networks through the parishes, through the work with Caritas, and the sustained relationship, because forgiveness, reconciliation doesn't happen and it's all over. It was very profound for me to experience a person whose family was wiped out standing next to the perpetrator in this context of a very healing, wonderfully loving and sustaining organization that CRS is making possible. So I want to thank you for that experience. And there's also the transformation within that's a part of the work that I think you're making possible for all of us through this organization.
Thank you.
Thank you
So much. It is the hardest work to do. Sometimes they take 30 years, like in the Philippines. We're still working on it. But the good news is sometimes there's new generations, and we just have to do that work, because otherwise that's a big elephant in the room. We cannot advance people's lives if we're still stuck on those, and eventually they give rise to huge violence. So thank you. And also, building local capacity is very important to us. We keep passing our work to our local partners. And so some of this work at the end of the AIDS video, there's many $100 million of grant. We took it for 10 years. The next 10 years was to prepare our local partners from the 10 countries to stand up to receive those grants. They have to compete for it too. 9 out of 10 countries succeeded. They are now the implementing partners, and we are actually their technical advisors. And they are able to win because we're the technical advisors, but we basically transition. We're talking about many $1 million of work. We were just in Rwanda last year, and Caritas Rwanda just won its first USAID grant as the primary grant writer, and we were their technical advisors. And so this is the type of work that we're doing. Is in the end is their country. They want to be the leaders in that country. They don't want these Americans to be running all the show. But all the financial controls that we have put in, the project management skills, technical training, and so on and so forth, when they were our partners, you know, they sort of internalized all of those too. So that also gets them ready to apply for grants from like the UK, or the US, or whatever it is. So it's very rewarding, but it forces us to reinvent ourselves. We can't keep on don't want to do the work that other people can do. So that's why you see sort of like in our health work now, it's not running clinics, it's to rethink how can we play a role in health systems strengthening, particularly when about 40 to 60% of healthcare in developing countries are, you know, Catholic-based or faith-based. And we have all these large Catholic systems here in the US and in Germany. Our board member, Sister Carol Haiyan, is the president of Catholic Health Association. So it's to rethink the Daughters of Charity. Well, they're everywhere and they do health. And so how can we take, you know, the health system in Zambia, in India, and work at it as a system issue? Because you see in HIV/AIDS, there's a lot of different things to work on and work at that level. So that's what we're doing. Thank you. You are the last one.
Okay. I really appreciate the emphasis that you put on the delicate balance between having community ownership and mutual ownership when you go into communities between CRS and the actual people living inside of the community. And that was one thing that was really emphasized in a grassroots organization class that I took, the need for mutual ownership. So I was wondering if you can mention some specifics that you have for like listening mechanisms that that CRS implements when they go into a specific community and seek to like get input from the local people living there.
Yeah, it's so much a part of our work. So I could give you 2 examples. I was in Afghanistan to look at some of our water work, and clearly water is very important to agriculture, and there are actually for-profit contractors who receive contract from the US government, and they just go and dig a few wells and that sort of thing, and then nobody uses those wells. You've heard of it. The way that, and the government actually, US government actually asked whether we could double or triple our work, and we told them no. Because for us to build a well is about a 4-month to a 6-month project. And the reason is that you go into the community, you have meetings with all of the community elders. You sit down and you ask them what their needs are, and try to see where water fits into that set of needs. So actually they also have flip charts. We could be sitting in a mud drilling on our, I don't sit on the floor cross-legged very well, but that's what we do. There are flip charts all around. We do the same brainstorming, and they talk about eventually water. What do they want to use water for? What are the objectives? For example, one of the objectives was that men get to clean much better before prayer. And that the women then don't have to go to the river to get the water, which is polluted, where it's also unsafe because they walk down these hills, and also because there are fights at the water source. And also they want their women to learn to read, and I asked them why they wanted their women to learn to read. They wanted the women to be able to read the Quran, right? And so you work through that. What is it that they want? What do they want it to use it for? Then you have to deal with the whole issue of the technical maintenance part of it. The engineering is not very hard, the water source and, you know, the pipes and so on, but it doesn't always affect one community. It could affect multiple communities. So you have to bring those communities together. Then who will maintain these pipes? And also, because now there is water, there will be water taps available, and it couldn't be at every house. I mean, so you have to decide where to put a stand, because otherwise it could create conflict if you put the stand in the wrong place. So just the whole maintenance, the whole social dynamic. So, and this group progressed to the point where they did build all of this, and also, how would they grow their crops differently? What are the implications? And in some communities, for example, when I was in Kenya, the yield is sometimes 8-folds. And the question is, how do you provide the governance for that money for that community? For that Kenya community, eventually they actually set up a fund for education for the girls. But going back to this Afghan community, it took everything to get to the point where they put it up, where the taps would be, who will maintain it, the people who were getting the runoff from the waters, because they're runoff areas, they have fatter produce and more of those and greener. And is that a community good or is that a personal good? Because you're affecting the whole dynamics of the community. And where there's more water runoff, there's really quite a difference in wealth. And it got to the point, the problem solving associated with this, the whole community piece of it, is right there. In a lot of these emergency shelters, we always work with the local community. What do they want their shelter to look like? There are UN standards in terms of, there's basic dimensions and wind force and that sort of thing. But beyond that, there's a lot of things that they could have a say in. So you gather the community, basically, we have a team of engineers and mostly Filipinos. They go around, they could go to India, they go to Ethiopia, and they have the basic model, they have the basic dimension and so on and so forth. They construct a pilot right in the middle of the village. And everybody comes and say, more of this, less of this, how should it be ventilated, and one window, 2 windows, and so on. And a lot of it is actually also respecting, sort of the social interactions of people, how they think about privacy, how they want to interact. And so we always start with listening, pilot, more listening, and almost all of the work we try to have the local community do through what we call cash for work. So they are also responsible for their own construction. Yep. And now we have our devices. They could actually give us feedback and tell us that we were too slow, we didn't go to their home, we didn't do whatever right. That cell phone empowered our beneficiary to the point where for the first time, they know they're not dependent on us. And we measure ourselves based on all of this feedback. So thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you, Dr. Woo. I'd like to invite everybody to join us for a little reception this evening, and I'd like to thank you very much for being here for this wonderful presentation.